Hello everyone, my name is Isadora. I'm an English teacher and researcher. I have taught kids, teenagers, adults, and I've worked in both public and private contexts. Today I'm going to talk to you a little bit about assessment, more specifically language assessment. In my 10 years experience as a teacher, I've actually only become interested in assessment for the past 3 or 4 years. Like many teachers, assessment to me was kind of a given. It was something that happened at the end of the learning cycle, usually involving tests, grading. But what I realized from my experience in different teaching contexts was that even if a colleague and I were teaching a same level class, so for example, I don't know, basic English, we would have different tests. We use different tests to evaluate our students, or if we had to use the same test, we had different standards to evaluate them. So what I considered an appropriate answer wouldn't be an appropriate answer for my colleague, and vice versa. So I started reading and researching a little more in the area of testing because I assumed that, that was all there was to it. I wanted to make better tests, fairer tests, but the more I researched and the more I learned, the more I realized that testing is actually only a part of assessment. So assessment is a broader concept, and it should be thought of at the beginning of the learning cycle, together with teaching and learning, because they're equally important. And in fact, assessment is what integrates teaching and learning. Now, what exactly do I mean by that? I'm going to give you an example. So what we usually do in class, we give students a test, we grade them, and then we move on with our subject, even though sometimes it's quite clear that students are struggling and they haven't learned. So if we think about the objective of education, which is to increase student learning, then we're not really fulfilling this objective, right? What we should do is we should use these results that we collect from assessment tools to base our decisions. So what are we going to do next? Are we really going to move on to another topic, or should we review something that wasn't so clear for students? So this is what we call assessment for learning. So you're using assessment to promote learning, as opposed to assessment of learning, which is when you focus on the final product. You just want to know what level of English your students have. Both of these are important. You need to evaluate both process and product, but what usually happens is that we focus on the product only. Now I imagine many teachers are listening to this and thinking, wow, great, that's more work for me, right? But actually seeing an assessment within this broader perspective doesn't necessarily imply more work. You don't need to reinvent the wheel. The very same classroom activities that you use can be your assessment tools, your grading tools. Take a writing activity, for example, which usually requires a lot from teachers when it comes to correction and feedback. Why not get your students to correct each other's work? So you give them a set of simple, straight-to-the-point criteria, and they use it to make comments on each other's work. And that doesn't mean grading their peers, but giving them comments for feedback. And as they do that, as they correct their friends' work, they will probably become more aware of what they need to do to improve their own work. So for teachers who would like to, make some changes to their assessment practices, I say, why not begin now that we're being kind of forced to reinvent ourselves during this pandemic period? Start small, start by changing one thing and then see where it gets you. I see many teachers worrying about students cheating during this period because they're taking tests but they're home. They can consult the internet, they can use books, they can ask their parents. But is that really so bad? I mean, if by doing so they're learning, then we're actually fulfilling the objective of education. So why not integrate this research aspect? Because I prefer to call it research than cheating. Why not integrate it in the criteria for evaluation, you know, quality of research or depth of answer? Or maybe why not use different assessment tools instead of tests? I'm not against tests, but they cannot be our only assessment tool. Our students learn differently, and we need to give them different opportunities to show us that they have learned or how they have learned it. Now, I understand that this all may be a little challenging for many teachers because most of us haven't had the opportunity to develop this assessment awareness, this assessment literacy, right? Which is this ability to understand, or the knowledge and the abilities to use assessment to promote learning. But I believe that the most important quality for teachers is still their willingness to learn. So I think that's, you know, the starting point for making changes in assessment. So I hope you have enjoyed the video. I hope I inspired you somehow. I hope you are well and safe at home. Thank you.